Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, well, this is yet another meeting of the Baltimore County Redistricting, Councilmanic Redistricting Commission to consider and make recommendations on the boundaries of the council districts. This is done every 10 years, and it is done following each decennial census. And we are currently in the middle of it. I guess just a little bit of information. The census data, at least most of it, has been released by the Census Bureau. There was a press conference a few weeks ago that made that announcement, and I think the information was disseminated shortly thereafter. If you clicked on the Maryland Department of Planning's website, you can also get the data there. I'm not sure yet if the county has the data on its website in terms of maybe the planning department or what have you, but it is there to be that you can view it on the Maryland Department of Planning website. So that's good news. And the good news or bad news is we then now have to do something with all that data. And so in any event, you all were given the web application about 2.5 weeks ago, maybe almost 3 weeks ago, I think on August 5th. And hopefully the members have had an opportunity to log on and do some moving around of council districts or not districts, but of those census blocks, and just to see what it looks like and what changes you can make. We've got roughly a month and a half and some change to get all this done, and so I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. Before we kind of get started, does anyone or any of the commission members have any questions? Okay, hearing none. What we have for you today is we wanted to, I think you've been introduced before, but we wanted to introduce you to Kui. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Zhao.
Kui Zhao. She is a demographer in planning in the county's Department of Planning, and she can do a lot with all the information that is out there, all the population information. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to her, and I think she's going to give you all kind of a brief presentation just to give you some context on what we're doing in terms of the councilmanic boundaries and districts. Is that okay, Kui?
Yes. Good afternoon. Let me share my screen first.
Okay.
Could everybody see my screen, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Let me turn on the presentation mode. All right. Okay. Good afternoon, commissioners Tom, Adam, GS colleague, and also Mr. Patoka. Nice seeing you there too. My name is Kui Zhao, a certified planner with Planning Department in the county. I'm presenting the demographic overview, demographic trends and patterns in the county in the past 10 years or so. Hope this works. Okay. Per Adam's request, I'm about to debrief the following contents this afternoon during this presentation. Minimize our video. Okay, there. Okay, Baltimore County has been the third largest jurisdiction in population in the state of Maryland, and also the largest in the Baltimore metropolitan region for decades. And in Census 2020, this population ranking continues or remains. This chart shows the county in the metropolitan regional context by regional, actually. I selected some counties, even though the Department of Planning in the state, they posted the entire, all the 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland, but I only selected those metropolitan counties to have a comparison. So you can tell Baltimore County, this is 20, they put 2020 first. It's the largest in the Baltimore region, and also behind Montgomery County, Prince George's County is the third in terms of population in the state, and also the growth in terms of big growth, actual or absolute growth. Prince George's County has the largest in the past 10 years between decennial census 2010 and decennial census 2020. And the next is Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore County is the fourth in terms of population growth, and Howard County is growing rapidly. You can tell from the percentage change. Frederick County is the first, Howard County, and then actually the third one is Charles County. I can show the full chart for you later on. And then Prince George's County. This is whole state. I hope this hyperlink works. Yeah, this is for the whole state. That is also compiled by the Planning Department of Maryland Department of Planning. So, just a quick, something quick. Yeah. Yeah, once again, Charles County has a pretty fast growth rate. It's the number 3 in the state. The first one, once again, is Frederick, and then Howard. The third is Charles, and the fourth is Prince George's. Let's see if I can turn this thing off. Okay. Next slide. Within Baltimore County, the racial composition changes over the past 10 years between two decennial censuses. And data are displayed on this chart. There is a reduction in white population from 2010 to 2020. And here's the reduction. It's a 68,000 and a 61. And there's a percentage reduction there for white population. And in the state of Maryland, Montgomery, Prince George's, Howard counties are the majority and minority counties already, and as well as Baltimore City. And the definition for majority and a minority is that the minority population together surpasses the number of white population. Let's see what I have here. There's another hyperlink. Oh, this shows Montgomery County, Howard County, and the white populations number as of 2020, census 2020, and also the percent of white population to the county's total population. This is Montgomery County, Howard County, Prince George's, in Baltimore City. Okay, now I'm going to show a series of maps, demographic maps that Adam suggested me doing. This map shows the Black or African American population continues to rise and largely resides in the west or northwest portions of Baltimore County. This is the 2020 map, and on its left it's the 2010 map. You can tell, as I showed in the earlier chart, the number of Black or African American population has increased from 2010 to 2020, and this is the absolute growth. This is the percentage change, and that's the census term that classifies that group of population as Black or African American. Next is Asian or Pacific Islander population. It's more likely to cluster in areas outside the Beltway, except for the southeast area of the county, and now mainly concentrated in the White Marsh Perry Hall area, central part of the county, kind of clustered together, and also southeast area of Baltimore County. There are a lot of Asian restaurants or stores in this vicinity. And this is 2020 map. Go back, sorry. For 2010, pretty much same pattern, but more Asian or Pacific Islander population who moved to reside in Baltimore County. And recently there is a Washington Post article that emphasized on the significant growth of Asian population in the state of Maryland and in the Washington region as well. The next is Hispanic or Latino population. That can be of any race, and keep that in mind. That's not a race category, it's the ethnicity category defined by the US Census Bureau. So it can be of any race. And this is 2020 map based on the 2020 census data. And basically the Hispanic or Latino population resides in the Owings Mills areas and also southeast area of the county. And in 2010, as compared to 2020, the number of people from the Hispanic or Latino origin was not that many. Okay, the foreign-born maps. This map shows the 2020 foreign-born map based on the 2020 census data. Oh, and actually, that's not the one that from census 2020 because the decennial census only collects and compiles and tabulates the very general population and housing characteristics. And the foreign-born is kind of considered part of the detailed social economic data. So they are only available in the American Community Survey, which is another product of the US Census Bureau. This is the most recent estimate, which is the 2019 estimate, and shows the foreign-born in 2019. And basically the foreign-born population is clustered in the Northwest County, part of Southwest, right, and also part of Northeast, but basically in the Northwest portion of Baltimore County. And according to some other studies by planning department for like language access plans, so on and so forth, the major foreign population groups are Russians, Spanish-speaking people, Chinese, Korean, Tagalog-speaking people, and French-speaking people, so on and so forth. And on the left is the 2010 American Community Survey data based map showing the foreign-born population in Baltimore County back in 2010. Basically similar pattern, but more foreign-born people in Baltimore County. And now it's a home ownership rate. This is not from the decennial census and will not be available from the decennial census, but from the American Community Survey. And now the map in front of us is 2019, the most recent estimates from the American Community Survey by the US Census Bureau. And on the left, it's the 2010 estimates also from the American Community Survey. By the way, American Community Survey is a kind of sample survey. Every year, only 2.5 or so or 3% of households nationwide were selected for the American Community Survey program. So that's why the Census Bureau strongly recommends data users to use the 5-year average. So this is actually this is 2015 to 2019 5-year average. The rolling average is more reliable and more accurate than the 1-year estimates, according to the Census Bureau and statisticians who understand the demographic data. So you can tell that the home ownership rates tend to increase all over the county, except for the areas where there are long-time existing multifamily communities or new multifamily development for diverse segments of population. Basically, different life stages of population they may choose different types of housing, including different types of multifamily housing units. Countywide, actually, I forgot about saying the countywide foreign-born. Actually, just stay there. Countywide foreign-born. Okay, in 2019, once again, the sample data, there are 105,712 foreign-born population, and 44% of them were not U.S. citizens. Back in 2010, there were 82,103 foreign-born population, and 52.5% of them were not U.S. citizens. Okay, and for home ownership, countywide, in 2019, 65%. That's the home ownership rate for 2019. For 2020, it was 67%. Now move to educational attainment. The educational attainment maps, two of them of of course, 2019 and 2020, which I will show later on, portray the percent bachelors or higher among population 25 years or over. The high attainment is likely in the central northwest, southwest, and northeast areas of the county. Countywide, the educational attainment increased from 35% in 2010 to nearly 41% in 2019. Again, educational attainment data are only available in the American Community Survey as well. That's the very specific social economic data. Actually, the ACS American Community Survey replaces if people, replace the long-term. In the past, decennial census had two forms. One is short form, which is equivalent to the census 2010, 2020, and there was a long-term, long questionnaire which had so many dozens of socioeconomic detailed questions. And now American Community Survey, I think since 1996, replaced the long form questionnaire. So there's, since 1996, there's no long form questionnaire anymore, which is once again replaced by American Community Survey. So now we are back to educational attainment. Okay, 2019 and also 2010, basically the similar pattern. In terms of educational attainment, more people in 2019 have earned bachelor's or higher education or degrees or educational attainment within the county. And next is the median household income. Median household income indicator is very important in measuring social economic status of an area's population. The two maps, we show both together now. They're produced using the county's median in different time periods so that we can review the small areas income levels using the federally defined percentages of the county's median. Like in 2010, I used the county's median, which is smaller, of course, lower with inflation and so on and so forth. And this is the county median. Myself, it's kind of hard to see that too. I think it's 63, nearly 64,000. That was the county median back in 2010, and also using the federally defined percentages 50, 80. This is 50 or lower means low, very low and low income households, and 80% for 80%, between 80% and 120% is the moderate, and above 120% is classified as upper income. So you can tell the geographic income distributions within the county back in 2010, and also now the county has back in 2019. Once again, is the most recent estimates for also the countywide income is higher, so the apply that to 50, 80, or 100, 120% to the county's median. So there's a somewhat different pattern, but it's still, generally speaking, it's pretty similar. And also I want to point out, see those dark red areas, they are actually universities. So the data can be misrepresenting sometimes because they are just student population. So college student population. So that doesn't mean these two areas are impoverished. The next two maps, once again, on the left is 2010, on the right is 2019, is the poverty status, meaning the persons in poverty. That sort of corresponding to the income maps, but not totally. Because, for instance, one racial group, not necessarily this map, one racial group has very, very high income level, pretty much equivalent to the white population's income level. But on the other hand, the poverty rate for that particular racial group is very high, usually it's between 12 and 14% as well. So the income and poverty, they should go hand in hand, but not exactly sometimes it's not necessarily perfectly related to each other.
Kui, can I ask just a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Does did the same issue with the schools that you described in the previous one apply to this one as well?
Attainment, educational attainment?
No. The income one. You referenced how portions are university have universities with student populations and maybe they don't report income.
Yeah.
Does the same thing apply to this one?
Exactly. Thank you for reminding me. And once again, statistically, sometimes the poverty status and income may not be perfectly correlated. So the last but not the least, county's population 60 years old or over. And once again, on the left is 2010, on the right is 2019. Why I use 2019? Because for redistricting purposes, the Census Bureau only, and also the time issue, the time frame, they now only released population 18, total population and population 18 years old or older. There are no specific age group data yet, but they promise they will release all the Census 2020 data before September the 30th, 2021. So that's why I have to continue to use American Community Survey data. Yeah, American Community Survey not only includes social economic data, but also the very basic population and housing characteristics as well. So anyway, these are from this one actually on the right. The 2019 map is produced based on the American Community Survey data, but you can see the very strikingly similar trend, but you can also tell that population 60 years old or over has been increasing in some census tracts and also countywide. Let me show you my last hyperlink here, and this is the last slide too. So spreadsheet, this is 2010, back like 10, 11 years ago. In Baltimore County, if you see the percent share to each county's total population, I didn't sort this on purpose. Baltimore County's 60 years old or older population was about 20% or so to the county's total population in 2010. And you can tell it's number 2 in the state. And also it's number 2 again, according to the 2019 American Community Survey data, it's second in ranking among, there's another thing. For those counties, they're not in the American Community Survey for 2019 because the sample size is too small. And there's a confidentiality agreement between that the Census Bureau has to comply. So that's why they are not included in the 2019 American Community Survey. So that's why there are only 16 or so county and Baltimore City are selected. So among those, Baltimore County is number 2 in terms of percent 60 years old or older. Actually, if we take them into consideration, well, this is 2010. Yeah, there's some counties, Eastern Shore counties that had a higher percentage back in 2010. And also this is the absolute change from 2010 to 2019. And the largest is Baltimore County. Oh no, actually Montgomery Prince George's, which makes sense because their population base is large. And then Baltimore County, of course, number 3, and the total population is the 3rd in the state. So that's the percentage change. Second largest is what? Calvert and also St. Mary's. Yeah, they are kind of the retirement community probably in Calvert County as well. So that's the, I don't need to do that. So that's the end of the presentation. And now it's time for question or questions.
Sue, do you have any idea what the population changes were in Hartford County? Because your figures indicate an outflow of white citizens by 50-some thousand people.
Okay, here.
Where'd they go?
Uh,
Carroll County, Harford County?
Anecdotally, it's Carroll County, Harford County, and also Pennsylvania, probably part of Pennsylvania. Anecdotally. To the slideshow mode so you can see it clearly. Okay, yeah, that's not the chart because I want to show you this statewide. Let me see, guys. No, I only selected 4, but yeah, but I will provide you with the number. But still, that doesn't mean that the growth in white population in Harford County or Carroll County they are from Baltimore County. We have to dig into the American Community Survey data to see the migration patterns for the state of Maryland.
Are you familiar with any of the previous census data? Because in my almost century of living here in Baltimore County, I've never seen that big of an outflow of white citizens to other subdivisions. It was just surprising it was so big. It doesn't surprise me that there's an outflow, but 70,000 people, wow.
Yeah. Once again, as I mentioned, Montgomery, Prince George's, Howard. Howard, that's the first time that it became the majority minority, and it was basically attributable to the increase or growth in Asian population. In Montgomery County, it's a combination of Black or African American and Asian. And in Prince George's and also Baltimore City, it's a Black or African American population. Yeah, actually back in the 60s or 70s, there was white flight again. It's the demographic term officially, from Baltimore City to Baltimore County.
And what was that outflow? I forgot. Baltimore City lost a large number of African Americans. Did most of them come here?
Some of them, yeah, but I once again need to dig into the.
And you got,
yeah,
it's roughly 45,000.
Right.
Bob, I just noticed too, one of the largest groups here is 2 or more races. So it's possible that, there's just more people checking that box as well.
Yeah, that's a good question because all the racial ethnicity questions are self-identified. So a friend of mine, young friend of mine, his father is white and his mother is a Korean. When we were talking or having fun, he always said, Korean. So he's in his late 20s. So it really depends on how he would fill the census form.
That may account for some, but that demographic or 2 or more races only grew by just under 4%.
Yeah, if we look at the absolute,
I don't know if that would. Yeah, I don't know that would solve.
Yeah, if we look at the absolute growth number, it's kind of significant.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting how Hispanic, Latino, 2 or more races, and Black and African American alone, they grew remarkably at similar rates. So, I guess when we say we're becoming more diverse, it truly is. It's not just one; it's actually the coalition, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, actually, the entire state of Maryland is the majority minority state already.
Fascinating.
Well, what else is interesting is, you wonder when people are filling out these censuses whether they may confuse race and ethnicity because they are similar in a sense, but they are not really the same. I mean, I actually have two ethnicities, Caucasian. I mean, I'm I guess Anglo or whatever, but I'm also half Armenian because my mother was full blood first generation Armenian to this country. But you know, my race I would, I guess, identify as Caucasian or as white. So, and I don't know if even I'm not even sure if that's exactly right. So. So I wonder how a lot of people fill these things out, you know, the best they can.
Yeah, yeah. And also, yeah, like I said earlier, it's a self-identified or self-defined answer. And also, I know among a lot of Asians, they don't feel comfortable to, they didn't feel comfortable to check off the Asian box, or they didn't want to participate in the census at all. And a similar situation for people of the Hispanic and Latino origin.
So how did Baltimore County compare with, just in general, with the rest of the country?
Oh, I can do some sort of exercise for you after this presentation.
You can't see that.
Yeah, I need to just clean the data a little bit. Let me see if there's a quick way to.
This was the Meet the Press breakdown last week.
Okay.
And I don't know if you see it. It's almost like Maryland doesn't match up with the national statistics. Not that it should, and not that it has anything to do with our redistricting, but it's just some interesting figures.
Mm-hmm. See the price. Yeah, you want me to come?
I'll email that to you.
Sure, thank you.
And to everybody else. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I think I
Do
saw.
we have any data for the specific districts yet? Or is this just a global, how the county has changed?
For what district? For Councilmanic?
Yes.
No, not yet, not yet. That's why they released this, part of the data release is the census block groups. That's the smallest geography that Census Bureau delineates and uses for statistical purpose only, and use groups of census blocks to kind of try the best for local people to try to match or delineate the new county council boundaries. That's what the GIS colleagues is or have been doing.
Do you know if they've been able to add that information to the application we all received?
Christine?
I'm sorry,
Christine and her group has been doing that.
We have not yet. We were waiting on the final data to come for the census blocks.
Okay. I think they developed an application for the commissioners to use to delineate the new county council district boundaries.
I'm sorry, Steve, can you clarify, is that still something that's pending? You're still awaiting that information, or we have the information and just waiting to upload it into the GIS?
We do not have the information. We're waiting on getting the final census data. I'm not positive. I think it's a couple weeks away still from when we can use that. But once we get that, then we can add it in. Yes.
And you're anticipating that'll include all of this data down to the census block level?
Believe so.
Right. Okay,
great.
Right, because 6 weeks after the Census Bureau released they call it legend format data, the Maryland Department of Planning need to adjust the Census Bureau's data by realigning the incarcerated population from the facilities to their home addresses.
So Tom mentioned our short time frame to get our work product done into the county council. Do we have any sense, and once that information, I guess, has been, you know, disseminated from census to the state, how long it would take to actually, you know, be the beneficiaries of that data at the census block level?
Well,
It should not.
I'm actually hoping it'll be at the voter precinct level ultimately, because that's how your recommendations are going to be based on voter precinct changes.
Yeah, Tom, I think once that's a great point. I think once we talk about the use of the application, which I found to be very helpful, I'd love to revisit that if we can, and maybe learn a little bit more about that process and the genesis of determining the districts that way. But I certainly would take an opportunity to learn a little bit more about that.
But yes, your question is a good one. I guess, how long, is there an estimate of time from now, from when you all are going to be able to use the actual data? And I don't know if that would be from Kui or from Steve.
Tom? Tom?
Yes.
This is Aaron. For some reason, my device has me locked into audio only. That's why I'm not on camera. But anyway, I want to thank Sam for his question related to the direction that we're going to travel once the additional data will be uploaded or into the dashboard that we received. So I really appreciate that question. And also the presentation I found very, very informative. I had viewed the slides we received earlier and had a preliminary understanding of what we're going to learn later on. So this has been quite informational for me, and thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I would certainly echo those remarks. Thank you very much. This is very helpful.
Welcome.
So I just want to be clear, the information that was released on August 12th, the redistricting data, what has that at all been incorporated into your numbers and the data that you provided?
Yes, except for population 60 years old or over.
Okay.
And also for some, let me go back to the presentation mode again. For the foreign born, they are only available in the American Community Survey, as well as home ownership rate, education attainment, income, and poverty. And this one, as soon as the Census Bureau releases the full packet of their data on their datacensus.gov for all data users to use, then I would be able to break down the population to obtain the population by age, or for the specific detailed age groups, including 60 or 65 or over for our aging department as well.
So do you have any information regarding population regarding congressional or state legislative district yet?
Yes. Actually, the state planning department already posted Census 2020 data on their website.
Can you provide that to us? Because I think that would be helpful sort of in our exercise moving forward.
Sure.
And sort of give us some idea on what we're working with when we get the more specific census track data for the individual districts at the local level.
However, even though the Census Bureau released the data by congressional district, however, they are subject to change too after,
Well, I mean, we're just working on this tight timeline, so as much information as we can get.
Yeah, because the data are still aggregated by the congressional district 10 years ago or so.
Right, but state and local districts are within that, so I think it would be helpful.
Okay.
Q, I'm sorry, how do you pronounce your name again? Q?
Kui Zhao.
Kui?
Yeah, Mr. Patoka.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the figures on the East Coast on the for Baltimore County? I'm talking about the 60 years and older. We were told a bunch of years ago, back when Dutch Rupersberger was county executive, he very often said to a bunch of business people, "We are the oldest county east of the Mississippi, other than Dade County, Florida."
Right, I remember that.
Do we still hold that reputation?
Well, I was in the office when our planning department, our director, former director, Pat Keller, and also our then deputy director, Mr. Easy Patoka, received the request from the county executive's office, and they came to me, our director and deputy director came to me asking for that, and I worked with the state planning department's demographer and an economist whose name was Mark Goldston. He's retired. We worked together, and we figured that Baltimore County actually was the middle ranking in terms of the percent of elderly or senior population. There are 3,600 counties nationwide, and Baltimore County the ranking was in the middle. So
nationwide.
Right, I talked to Adam offline the other day, and he was incorrect. So,
Yeah, Bob, I've heard the same thing. And as Kui just said, we're actually middle of the pack in terms of, I guess.
National.
Yeah, nationally. Yeah.
Corey, one of the other questions I had, not that it relates to redistricting so much, but it looked like the southeast section of Baltimore County had the lowest education level in general, and yet one of your other charts looked as if a section, the lower section of the southeast section of the county, had one of the higher income levels.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
I would say that's the waterfront communities.
And it looks like they're mostly waterfront. So maybe maybe they in general had a higher education level and subsequently higher household income average.
Yeah, I would say just like in Anne Arundel and some other waterfront communities, they may not necessarily coincide with each other. The educational level and the income depends on what people's occupations are and what they rely on for their income. There may be different income sources as well.
Are there that many lawyers down in that section? I'm kidding, Sam and Chad. Don't answer that.
No, I'm not going to. Not going to.
Another question. Right now, I think the average county council district has about 110,000 people, 112, and we're shooting to maybe be 122. Are the populations, have you had a chance to look at those, pretty equal now, or is one or two of the councilmanic districts a bit out of proportion?
I can only do some sort of calculation using the existing or current councilmanic district boundaries and also the census data. However, the census tract level data, which is a bigger geography than the census blocks that OIT colleagues are going to use for redistricting purposes. Yeah, but that's going to be pretty kind of approximation because I'm going to use a higher level of geography to match the current councilmanic district boundary. Yeah, in theory, it ought to be all 7 districts ought to have the same number of population, theoretically.
Hey, Bob, that question is a great segue to, I think, talking about our experiences with the redistricting dashboard, because I think that's what we're trying to weigh more than anything else is in terms of our charge with compact contiguous and of a similar population size. I think that's the one bit of data I think that would be very, very helpful. The tool's been incredibly helpful, and we'll get into that, but I think being able to at least have that and understand, and Jim made the point also, to be able to, understand what each population of a proposed councilmanic district is now, and whether we make any modifications. So
yeah, I'm guessing
it'd be great to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm guessing, Sam, that as you and I talked about before, they're pretty much similar except for maybe Perry Hall. And I just see that from building permits over the last 10 years. Just so much going on out there. And then the school overcrowding is mostly profoundly poor in the Perry Hall area. So I would have to guess that district of any of them is going to have to be jiggled around a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that's the one that's currently the most overweight in terms of population. I may be wrong, but I think I recall that.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, you could also visit the Department of Planning's APFO school webpage. I can send that to you as well, the link. Yeah, there's school maps and also school annual APFO report that we prepare for the county council, for the county executive's office, and for the school system, for actually for PAI as well.
Yeah, I would imagine though it's going to be very difficult to get those sort of district by district population counts until you have the census blocks to sort of build that out. But that's going to be a critical piece of information to enable us to do our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But if the federal and state level data is able or available now and is able to be inputted, I think that'll go a long way in helping us sort of get an idea of what we'll eventually be looking at.
Yeah. Well, we know we're going to be looking at a 7% increase in overall population, so.
And Tom Bostwick, is he still awake?
I believe he had to take a phone call. I don't want to give away anything, but I think this might have to do with the state of emergency that was just declared.
Oh, okay.
So is there something, is it a question that I could help you with?
Yeah, Adam, absolutely. Will we, when we get the data that we need to really work with, and it's in the census, what's it, Sam, the tracks or the what? Is that it?
Yeah, I think we should wait for Tom to have this discussion. I know he's got some feelings about this, but the more I learn, and as we discussed, I certainly think it would be great to have a conversation with staff about, given the short time frame, but actually figuring out how to make this redistricting dashboard.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Nice headphones, Mr. Bostwick. I hear you much better.
Good.
Will it be possible, and if you have a big enough screen, that when we get down to the final strokes on the districts, if we could all be together in person? So if we're jiggling around, Sam was telling me that again, is that the tracks or the blocks, the little ones.
Blocks.
What's the word?
Census blocks.
Blocks. When we're moving the blocks around in each district, will we be able to do that together, Tom? In person?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. First of all, though, bear in mind, once we get all the data, you'll be doing it by voter precincts. So you will be moving either voter precincts or parts of a voter precinct. That's what you'll be moving. I understand you're doing census blocks right now using the American Survey data, but you'll be ultimately doing it by voter precinct. And so the answer is, I'm hopeful that it'll be in person, and that, yeah, you can be in a room. It'll be almost like what we had when GIS did their demonstration. They had a big they had it on the big screen TV, and either Adam most likely, or I, very not likely, will be at the computer and making the changes that you all want, are ultimately agreeing on, and then you can see it,
See it together.
correct.
Tom, can we go back just a second? And thank you for bringing that back up again. I know we talked about it at the last meeting when we were in person in council chambers. The tool, the redistricting dashboard tool, I find is incredibly helpful so long as our work product is in census blocks. It is, I would say, I don't want to say we're wasting our time because we can get a little bit of an idea, but if they must be election precincts, then this is of limited utility to us at this point. That's just my I know there's differing opinions about and different jurisdictions do different things, but can you elaborate a little bit more, both in terms of the history and the necessity of using election precincts as our guide for the redistricting process?
Well, I can tell you that since this has been done, since the first time this was done, it has been done by voter precinct. That's the only way that it has been done. And I know that I think the Board of Elections, not that they're driving the bus at all, but in terms of us all working from the same sheet of music, I think, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think the Board of Elections, with us doing it by voter precinct, I think it's easier for them to alter the precinct, alter the boundaries and do the work that they need to do by voter precinct. I'm not saying they wouldn't be able to do it any other way. But mainly the reason is because, that's how we've done it in the past.
Sure.
And so if you're going to compare apples to apples, that would be logical.
Sure. No, I understand the historical precedent, and that's very comfortable. I think, in talking to some other folks in other jurisdictions, and seeing how advanced and really Steve and his team and how advanced these GIS products are, the job as it's currently now would be exceptionally easy. In addition to the other benefits of using sort of standardized blocks. I think it's something we should explore, but obviously I think that you raise a great point. If it's unworkable from the folks who are running the elections and the board, then that's certainly worthy of consideration. I would just I think it would be helpful in the near term if we could find out if that's something that they're able to work with or not.
No, we will.
Just,
I think
yeah.
we will, because I think a decision has to be made, in sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So, I hate to say, well, we've done it that way, so that's how we're doing it, because that's not a great way to do things. But I also am mindful of the fact that we have done it that way and are familiar with that way to do it, and it has worked well in the past. So it's hard to invent a completely new wheel. Not that we can't. In fact, we are at the moment.
Right.
So if that's how it ends up being, and there's no legal impediment to doing that, then I'm not closing that off. But I've been trying to do this in such a way that it was done previously, so that we would stay consistent.
Sure. It just, yeah, not to rehash, but it does seem like the future is it's really it's just so easy to use the data, especially if it's given the feedback about how easy it is once the data is released to actually input it into these servers. I think it's something, at least maybe for a few more days, we can explore, and I'd love to have, if you're able to get any feedback from the Board of Elections about potentially looking at it this way. I think it would make our jobs easier, and I think moving forward, potentially a cleaner, I hate to say less political process, but a more data-driven process. But I'm also very mindful of the short time frame that we have to get all this done. So
right.
If it upsets the apple cart, I get it.
No problem. And believe me, your point is well taken. It's funny. I'm looking at the data that was released by the Maryland Department of Planning, and they have it by voting districts. And I'm looking at one of these Excel spreadsheets, and I'm looking at the 15, let me make sure, there's 15 voter precincts in Baltimore County, and you can look at it, I'm looking at every one of them right now. So it seems to me that we would be able to take that data and put it in a form that can be used for your mapping application, just like you're using for the census blocks. So, and maybe it would be a little more clumsy. Maybe clumsy is not the right word. Maybe it would not be as detailed, because census blocks are smaller than voter precincts, I think. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I think it does give a fair amount of flexibility. And I've not seen, I guess I've not seen, I don't know about the other commission members, but I've not seen any of the voter precinct information. But I'm sure that's something we can get on the GIS. But yeah, I think something maybe we could spend a couple more days, as commission members and as staff exploring and the benefits and potential pitfalls. I'd be appreciative.
And we can certainly discuss it offline. But yeah, there are 15 voting districts, and of course there are precincts in each one of those voter districts. For example, voting district 1, it looks like, has 17 precincts. 2 has 31, and so on and so forth.
And I don't mean to monopolize time. If anybody has any other opinions about it, I'll be quiet. Thanks.
So I guess the one question would be, or the one hopefully, how is everyone doing with that application? I hope that you've had opportunities to look at it, to make some changes, to have some discussions amongst yourselves.
Well,
Yeah,
Tom,
great.
I've looked at it. I called Steve for clarification and assistance. He helped me immensely. So I have begun to take a look at it. And as looking at the information that Steve shared, I've also had access to the 15 election districts that we were talking about, and looking at the districts that I'm focusing on with respect to the dashboard and the different areas. So for me, though, it has been helpful in terms of the numbers and the number of precincts within the 15 election districts.
Yeah, Tom, Steve's been a big help. He helped me the other day too.
Right, I agree.
Good to hear.
It could just be made that we can just go back to square one, so we can just play around with it really more. I think that would be very helpful.
I think,
or to save versions of our progress. And
right. I don't. That's something I guess we'll have to discuss with Steve and his team, just because I don't know. I know it's simple enough for them if you contact them and tell them to kind of reset it. I don't know how much more difficult it is to make an app allow you to do that. So I just don't know.
Yeah, to do a if you want to submit like save changes or something, that we could do it. It was a little difficult. It would have to be on the back end of the software. We can't create something like that in the app. But we can give you a new layer, like to start over from scratch. We can do that pretty quickly. So you just have to let us know.
Wait, what was that last part?
If you want to start over from scratch, like if you made a bunch of changes and you got lost and you want to just set everything back to the beginning, we could do that on the back end very easily.
So just a reset button.
It's basically a reset button. Yeah, we couldn't put that in the app easily without a lot of custom coding, but we can do it on the back end in the database in the back end.
Okay. I think they would like that. That's at least what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, I had a quick question that's kind of along that same line. Say I had a map that I really liked and I wanted to, maybe save it for reference later on and have the commission members look at it and then start from scratch. Say like I was ready to move on to like a different scenario. Is there a way where you guys can save the, the state it is in, the state the web app is in right before you wipe it, so that, if I wanted to share that with the commission members, it'd be fairly easy, or is that more like we should be trying to print that out, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can either print it out, or we can do it again on the software interface that we have access to, where we could copy the layer, and then we'd have a copy that would be referenced to you, and then we could reset your data back to the beginning. Again, it's a little cumbersome, but we can do it. So yeah.
Well, were there any other questions about the web app itself? Anything anything about its functionality that you guys didn't like, or wanted to change? Anything, any updates on that part? Besides a reset button, which, we just talked about.
It became most useful for me when Steve showed me how to use the smart editor. I hadn't figured that one out, and to move things from one precinct to another precinct. That was quite helpful for me. Thanks to Steve. And also above and below the red and green line.
Yep, glad we could help with that.
Right. Tom, do we have an adjusted timeline on, or Tom and Steve, when these figures are going to get into our system and when we can officially start trying to redraw some of the precincts, which we may not, I'm sensing, and a couple of us have said to me, it doesn't look like we're going to have wholesale changes that'll be necessary. There's not going to be a whole lot. But Steve and Tom, do you have an idea when we might be having the final data into your computers?
I'm not sure when the final data will be available. I would expect on our side 2 or 3 days to do the work that we need to do, at the most, but I don't have a time frame on when the actual data is going to be released to us.
I'm not sure either, to be honest. It's weird. I mean, the data, there is certain data that is up there, but I don't know if it's been broken down into census blocks yet, or what. I mean, I think it has. I'm looking at the Maryland Department of Planning's website, and under total population counts, there are hyperlinks for tracts and block groups and voting districts and all kinds of stuff. So I would hope that we would be able to get that data in however form we need to get it, and then put it into your systems, so you're using the actual numbers and not the community survey numbers. I'm hoping we can get that moving like soon, and I don't mean that in a flip way. I mean soon, because I think the data's there. I think we all need to put our heads together, meaning, Adam and I and the GIS folks and COE, and see where we are.
The state site does say that the adjusted data should be expected the first week of September. So it says you shouldn't use the data for redistricting purposes until that is available.
That's right. That's the big thing. That's right.
Yeah, it's a pretty big pop-up that they put on there. So
yes,
yeah.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yes, absolutely. Christine is 100% right.
Tom, refresh my memory on our timeline then, our deadlines.
Our deadline is October 15. That is the charter mandated deadline.
That we have to be finished.
Yes, you have to be done mapping and making your recommendation.
So theoretically, we have plenty of time.
Exactly.
I just a personal opinion, I don't think it's going to be that complicated.
I hope you're right.
I don't think, there are a couple of the districts that, are going to need some shuffling around because of growth. But I think most of the districts look like they're going to be pretty close to what they are now.
I agree with Robert with respect to the easeability of what we have to do. It's not going to be that complicated, in my opinion, based on the numbers that I've seen thus far, which are preliminary numbers. The biggest growth that I've seen has been in the Perry Hall, White Marsh area.
Yeah.
And I know we've gotten, even today, many more testimonies from Lock Hill. And looking at Towson, looking at the 5th district and the 6th district, and the disproportionality and the lack of substantial population balance between those two districts, it's going to be easy to restore the people in Lock Hill or return them back to the 5th district where they used to be, in my opinion.
Well, Aaron, except that Lock Hill, and I don't have the map in front of me. I think Lock Hill is part of that little thumb that comes down out of the 5th district. That is the unusual, makes that district look very unusual. Almost, I hate to use the word gerrymandered, but it sure looks like it.
Right.
Well, it's certainly compact.
The 5th district?
We have to look more closely at that.
Well, another way we could do it is the 6th district could slide over from Hillendale, because Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, do they have part of Lock Hill now? The 6th district?
Yes.
So if we slid them a little bit to the west, a couple blocks, we could take the ugly looking thumb out of the 5th district and put it somewhere else, up north or east. Anyway, we'll see that when we get the numbers.
Great.
Correct.
This actually brings up a really good point, which is conflicts between maps that you guys might create. So if you do have a map, even if it's just for a specific area, it might be really helpful to share that with, Tom, myself, and probably Steve, so that we can start tracking, if there is a conflict in a particular area that one or another commission member thinks they, should be in a particular, district, we can start tracking those and kind of making a list of where, Bob, you think, Lock Hill should end at this street, or Aaron, if you think Lock Hill should end at another street, we can start tracking that for you.
But Adam, do we want to do that until before we get all the final data, final census data?
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah.
I could create a map and everybody else could create one, and then all of a sudden we get the official census data, and it may be close, but not close enough. So then you've wasted a lot of time, preparing a map or precinct changes or blocks. Sam Newberg, I keep getting that mixed up. I'm sorry. One's a track, one's a block. But getting those mixed up and not being able to retrieve, well, you could retrieve them once we get to the precinct level. But I think it might be best if we just wait till we get the final data. It's like trying to make a cake, but you don't have all the ingredients.
Right.
Yet.
I think you're right, Bob. And I would say for at least the next 2 weeks, I would continue doing it the way you're doing it. And then, once we do get the data, including the incarcerated individuals, then we'll be able to pivot. And then you'll have about 5 weeks to get this all done. And so, we'll probably have to spend a lot more time together.
Why you laugh at that, Tom? Wouldn't you love to be with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I wonder if we should talk about a little bit of new business.
Yes.
the new business that I alluded to in an email is possibly the nomination and vote on a chairperson. Miss Montgomery last week emailed me that she wanted to nominate a certain person to be chair of this commission for some reason. And and that person is you, Mr. Latshaw. So Miss Montgomery is nominating Bob Latshaw to be the chairperson of the commission. As you may all be aware, Mr. Latshaw was on the last commission in 2011, and obviously has a pretty good knowledge of how we're doing things. So,
May I second the motion?
is there a second? Yeah, okay.
I'm a second the motion, yes.
All right. Are there any other nominations for a possible chairperson? Okay,
No,
hearing none.
It's Sam. I think Bob will do an excellent job. Very supportive. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else wish to make any comments? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut anybody off.
Just remember when the arrows start to fly at the commission, where they go.
Okay.
Robert, wear your shield.
I'm a very large target.
All right.
We'll protect you.
So we have the nomination by Miss Montgomery, a second by Mr. Plymouth. I guess we could do a quick roll call vote. Miss Montgomery, and just say aye or nay.
Aye.
Mr. Latshaw, would you like to vote for yourself?
Sure. Okay. Aye.
Mr. Plymouth,
I was
Aye.
hesitant.
Mr.
Aye.
Newberger,
Aye.
Mr. Allman.
Aye.
Okay, so the vote is unanimous. Mr. Latshaw is the chairperson of the 2021 Baltimore County Councilmanic Redistricting Commission. Congratulations or
Does that mean I have
condolences.
to take him out to dinner, Tom?
That's up to you.
Yeah,
All
that'd
right,
be good.
well,
Thank you. It'd be,
go ahead.
I'll be just glad to do it. Thank you all.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
It's higher pay, Aaron.
Well, I know it's the multiplier is 0. You can ask what you want. The multiplier is 0, and you're gonna get it.
Hey, money is no object when the multiplier is 0.
That's good. Tom, you ran a good meeting and
Always.
well done. It was well done.
Thank you. We will certainly take what has been said and done in this meeting, and Adam and I will kind of, probably tomorrow, we will, wrap ourselves around it and try to put together, answers to some of your questions and issues that have been brought up.
Good.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Adam,
Does
you
anyone
did a
else
fine
have?
job too. Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments before we adjourn?
Stay hydrated and stay cool. Be blessed.
Exactly.
Amen to that. Mr. Latshaw, as the chairman of the commission, would you like to end the meeting?
The way I'm used to. All those in favor of ending the meeting signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes seem to have it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.